We'll go ahead and call the special meeting of Beaumont City Council to order on Monday, January 25th at 6:02.
5:02?
5:02, excuse me. 5:02?
I would have done that.
Roll call.
Mayor Lara,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem White,
Here.
Councilmember Knight,
Here.
Councilmember Orozco.
Here. Okay, we're all here. No need to address absences. Any adjustments or approvals to the closed session agenda?
No.
No conflict of interest or disclosures? Do we have any requests to speak, public comment on closed session items?
No, we do not.
So go ahead and adjourn to closed session at 5:02. We're resuming this special meeting for Beaumont City Council. We'll be resuming that at called 6:01. No change to roll call, so we'll move on. No action on excused absences. Councilmember Orozco, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand. Right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a chaplain here. Mr. De La Fuente?
Oh, where is he?
One.
All right. Well, let's pray. Well, Father God, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you for this wonderful community of leaders and business people. We ask that you bless this meeting and the time that we have, and that is very productive and honors you. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to report out from the closed session?
Yes, please.
Okay. The council met in closed session pursuant to item A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 and D3. One potential case. There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you very much. No adjustments to the agenda? No conflict of interest or disclosure to report? Do we have any announcements, recognitions, or proclamations?
No.
So that'll move us into the public comment period. Any one person may address City Council on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. And with that, I'll go ahead. Do we have any
Yes, we do.
comment? Okay, I'll go ahead and start public comment at 6:05.
First speaker, David Castaldo.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members. Mayor Lara, you asked the question of the 3 applicants at last week at the meeting. And the question, I think you were very unique in the one that you asked, was what would you do to restore public confidence in the city? And quite frankly, well, nobody asked me, so I'm going to give you a freebie. I'll give you my opinion. Because I get about 2 minutes and 45 seconds now. 3 easy steps, simple as A, B, and C, to restore confidence in the city and its government. And I will say, last week was not step A. and you would have to start today. The first step is on June 30th of each year, close the books and issue the audit report of the previous year by September 1st of each year. That's step A. Real simple. Step B, every year that you close the books and you have an auditing firm, get a different one every year. The mindset of having the same auditing firm for 20 straight years is stupid and insane. It'll cost the city a little bit more money, but you'll get a separate opinion and different opinion every year. Probably take a minimum of 2 years, if not 3 years, to pass the auditing. If you get a good report, 2-3 years that the city is spending its money in a correct fashion and a good report, you'll restore the confidence. The last one, real simple, C. Everybody's been talking about it for the last 5 years, transparency. This city and this city government will know when you reach true transparency, when there is never a need for anyone to have to do a public records request. When everybody can see exactly what's happening on the web and see that everything is transparent and there is no need, really? There is no need to have to do a request and there's nothing to hide, then you know that you restored the public confidence in the city and its government. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Anita Worthing.
I'm going. I got things to do. See you later.
Don't go. Mayor and Council, I'm here to talk about our upcoming Veterans Expo this Saturday at the Beaumont City Hall. This will be the 7th time that we have done it here, and we thank you so much for allowing us to have that here. We have honored from World War II up through to this past January of the Vietnam veterans, and we've had quite a few people that have benefited from it. We ask you to come. It's called the Veterans Military Family and Friends. So friends meaning also support. You don't necessarily have to have served. What you necessarily have to do is support those people who have done so. This time we are supporting the Gulf War veterans who actually, this thing has been going on for a good 20 years. It's called different things, Operation Enduring Freedom and whatever. Some people think that I cannot be a special honoree because I didn't go in country. We want to let everybody know whether or not you were a supporter here in the States, logistically, administratively, whatever, as long as you were in, come. We support everybody, and some people think that it's only just, this expo is only just for those honorees. It's for everybody, all. We invite you all to come. We invite the public to come. And we'll have a lot of hot dogs to, we have over 500 hot dogs to serve. So please come. Please tell everybody it is this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here. I was at the VA today. The VA will actually come in, and thank you that the city has allowed us to use their IT, so people, if they bring in their DD-214s, we will be able, actually the VA will be able to check their status. So if you know anybody, everybody in the public, tell them to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Ron Roy.
I believe this is going to be related to the appointment.
You want to change it to 4 then? Next speaker, Victor Dominguez.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm going to do a real fast advertisement here because the patch is getting kind of burned out a little bit. I think they're running on slicks right now. But there's a new website that actually is very informative, very factual, and it's ran by somebody who actually attends council meetings and either here or has them, watches them online. And that's the one that Gabe Ewing has put up. It's called mindyourownbeaumont.com. Is that correct?
It's a good place to get a factual article instead of, in other words, if you have a lot of friends and family that want to get caught up in local politics, but you don't want them to get bogged down into the frivolous blogs that are currently on Platch that take you in 10 different directions, a good source of fact-finding information is at mindyourownbeaumont.com. And I think that if more people will go there, they can get tuned in onto insider politics, onto what's going on. Because a lot of people don't really know what's going on, but they have a lot of questions. And he archives those blogs that he writes, that he fact-finds, and it can really bring up a citizen up to speed really quickly. Another thing I like about it is the comments. You don't have a bunch of trolls coming in and talking a bunch of madness on there. He really controls it to where the comments really attribute to the article what she wrote, to stay on point, stay factual based, and to make sure that everybody gets the right information. So I just wanted to share that with you, that it's a great tool for everybody to go to. It's clean, it's fun, it's actually pretty good. So if you get time, go to mindyourownbeaumont.com. You'll love it. You'll see the comments on there, and it's actually educational. You may see some good stuff there tonight. Who knows?
Thank you very much for your comment.
No further speakers, Mayor.
So with that, I'll go ahead and close public comment at 6:12. That brings us to council reports. Just go ahead and start with ladies first. Ms. Knight?
Okay. I just have one quick report. I attended the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce installation dinner. It was very, very well attended. They honored the Russos that they've been in the past for many, many years. Some of the first people I met out and about when I had a luncheon here. Well, actually, it was in Banning at their Russo's in Banning. They had invited a group of us, 15 of us, and the Attorney General was here from the state of California, and we got to talk about gang issues. And so I congratulate them, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Roscoe?
None at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Nothing to report.
Just a few quick comments. I just wanted to say that I'm currently adjusting to my new position here as mayor. I'll be working to keep the meetings moving in an efficient manner as best I can. So with that, I'll be asking my fellow council members for their patience, and please do not be offended if I try to move you along or keep you on point during your comments or questions. We're going to try something new this evening. I'll call it a 5-minute shot clock, so to speak. You'll have 5 minutes to comment, ask your questions, and at the end of 5 minutes, hopefully we'll be able to move it along to the next council member if they have any comments or questions. And I also wanted to add, transparency is a word that's often used, especially here, and I know that there's been a problem with that in the past. I don't believe the purpose of transparency is to set someone up for an I gotcha. What I do believe the purpose of transparency is, and again, this is my own personal belief, is that it's set up to create trust. Trust is something we haven't had in a while, and I think that we're working on. This trust creates credibility. And I think, in my opinion, that we've come a long way in the last year towards that transparency or earning that credibility. And I think this council is set on moving that forward. If you look at where we are, compare where we are today to a year ago, I think you'll see that we've come a long way in that direction. I just want to let you know that I think the staff here that remains today is doing a great job, and they're working very hard in trying to improve that credibility. That's all. That brings us to action item 4A, discussion and action to fill the vacancy on City Council.
Excuse me, Mayor. Point of order.
Yes, sir.
City Treasurer report.
I'm sorry. City Treasurer report.
Thank you, Mayor. No report tonight. The Standing Financial Committee will meet tomorrow night, so I expect a more comprehensive one next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now that brings us to action item number 4. Discussion and action to fill vacancy on City Council by appointment. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up public comment at 6:15.
First speaker, John Hollowell.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I did listen to the session last week over the internet. To say the least, I was very disappointed in the outcome of that meeting. I felt that a number of the things that were discussed in that meeting were overlooked during the discussions. One of the things that I thought was that everyone came with a first choice. The first choices were discussed. When it was obvious that there was no agreement going to be reached by the first choice, I didn't see any effort on anyone's part to try and bring up an alternate of the additional candidates, of which there were additional 5. So I thought that the council had not closed it off to that point when they were going through their original discussions, but they have closed it off for tonight. So I think that you could have been a little more open, and maybe you would have come to a determination if someone would have stepped forward and said maybe what their second choice was. Second choice is always still the first choice. One of the things that was talked about was diversity. If we talk of diversity within the population of the United States, it was just announced that here in California, Latinos are the highest percentage of people, so that makes us white folks in the minority. Also, when we sit down and look at the diversity of the sexes, more than 50% of the population are women. So we could take and have another lady on the council to help meet that need for that diversity factor. With respect to that, we have a candidate that would also meet the other factors. Someone said that they'd like to see someone from Solera or the other community on the other side of town be as a part of the council so that they would represent the little more older part of the community. We have a candidate tonight that would fill 2 of those categories. With respect to trying to get people to vote within their community, we could go to districts. I'm not necessarily in favor of districts, but when you hire someone to come in and look at the diversity that you're trying to get, you might be able to set up the districts so you could get a more diverse representation within the city by going to districts. One of the things that was talked about was the cost of the election. But there was another side of that that was not mentioned, and that was if someone decides to fill the position because you don't come to a decision tonight, every one of those candidates that goes to run will have to fill out a candidate statement, which is a cost to the candidate, unless you decide to take and pay that for them. So there's an additional cost to the election other than to the city itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Sue Miller.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I've come here tonight to share with you the concerns of my husband, friends, neighbors, the community of Solera, and myself. With the problems that face this council and the community of Beaumont, the people that voted in the last election sent the council a clear message that they want to move away from special interest groups and get Beaumont back on its feet. To call for a special vote to fill the vacant council seat would only add more expenses to an already financially laboring city. It makes no sense to spend money on a special vote in June and then turn around and have a regular vote in November. Whoever would win that vote would only have 4 months to serve this community. We need in these times to be good stewards of this community's coffers. You have the ability to provide closure to this issue without more expenses to our community. Dr. Della is a friend of mine and neighbor that exemplifies trust and integrity. She has no agenda, wants nothing but more to help Beaumont get back. She would be the perfect bridge candidate. Her education and experiences experience is priceless. She is innovative, and her experience would allow her to step into the council with very little learning curve. We all hope you will continue to have the City of Beaumont's interests as your primary concern. Remember, your voters sent a clear message in the last elections. Please keep special interest groups out of the council. I thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Steve Millman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I thank you for the opportunity to review the resumes of all the candidates. Thank you for putting them online so we could study them. I've done that objectively, and I honestly believe that Dr. Condon's resume stands out, that it is the strongest resume, not even close. Secondly, there was discussion last week about old Beaumont and new Beaumont. But what I think you're really getting at is old politics and new politics. David Castaldo talked about restoring trust in our government and our community. The last thing you need to do if you want to restore trust is go back to the old politics, to people who at one time supported Alan Kapanicus, to special interest groups. As a previous speaker said, there was a message sent during the last election. We're moving forward, we're moving in a different direction. So far, this council has done, in my view, a good job of doing that. Please, when you're considering a candidate tonight, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Kathy Dyson.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Dyson, and I live in Solara. As you know, I have never spoken before City Council before, but I felt the need to do so tonight and stand with Dr. Della Condon. I have read her resume and feel that she will be a good fit with our sitting council members. She has a lot to offer Beaumont, and I hope you vote her in to the City Council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, John Dyson.
John Dyson, Solara resident. Like many, I watched the council selection process last week, and like most, I came away very disappointed by the lack of results. Councilwoman Knight professed to want a council replacement who has history and knowledge of Old Beaumont. You wish for a fellow council member who already knows the issues and can easily come to decisions. It is likely uncomfortable for you having to listen to the new council members asking questions of staff and project presenters. You probably recall how Berg and DeForge could simply and easily just vote yes to everything Kapanicus recommended. Meetings lasted less than 2 hours. Things were good. Councilwoman Knight, you likely hope your friend and acquaintance, Sean Balunget, can help restore this environment. What you seem to have forgotten is that a year ago, the Beaumont citizens voted for change. Putting Mr. Balunget into the City Council would be akin to bringing Berg or DeForge back onto council. Do not throw this into the face of the Beaumont voters. Councilman Orozco, you appear to have embraced the uncontrolled home building growth foisted on Beaumont over the past 10 years. Candidate Balunget is obviously a fellow member of this camp, as shown by his speeches at the podium challenging the Balanced Growth Initiative. What I sincerely hope is that our local home developer representatives have not been bending your ear over the last 6 days. After reading Dr. Condon's impressive credentials and watching last week's questioning, I have to conclude that Della is the best choice to fill Jeff Fox's seat. There are many, many reasons for this, and I'm sure you already know what they are. Council members, I implore you, do the right thing and appoint Dr. Condon. Do not roll back the clock and the progress made over the past year by bringing back the old guard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Joseph Vega. Oh, Becca, sorry.
So what was the name?
Joseph
Becca,
Becca.
BECA. Mr. Mayor, council members, I just want to say that I read Della Condon's resume and also the other gentleman's resume. I know Della could bring to the table the quality that the city needs at this time, and to save the city money by having a special election when the coffers are already bleeding out the sides. I think Della would be the best choice for this city, and she would do the city well as a member of the council. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Jim Axberg.
Mayor, council members, this is my first rodeo. Won't be my last. I cannot talk to what everybody else has said about Stella. All I know is I worked with her for a short time at Solera on a project, and she helped me tremendously, kept me on the right track, kept me focused, and was a great wealth of information for what we had to do. So, and I think her being appointed to the council would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Victor Dominguez. That'll be up to Mayor to say if you'll let him come back. He said he's got it.
Need some water, so I asked when to last.
Do we have?
We'll go on to the next speaker.
Okay.
Or we can wait. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Continue. Dr. Della Condon.
Members of the council, Mayor, members of the audience, I really don't have a lot to say. I have to thank the people who have gotten up to speak, and I must tell you that most of these people I don't know, and I feel very flattered. I'd like to comment on the things that former Councilman Castaldo had to share. I think those were some wise, thoughtful ideas. I just must be very candid and say I know this is not about qualifications. It can be about politics, and I know you're under tremendous pressure. But I can tell you, if you appoint me to sit on the council with you, I will deal honestly, with integrity, with you. I will study the issues carefully, and I'll act in the best interest of this community. I am not anti-growth. I'm not anti-building. I have a great deal of understanding of the pressures that our developers and contractors are under. My husband was a contractor and developer employee his whole life. My son raised his family building these houses out here. This is what's made this a wonderful community, that we have great housing here. So I would certainly treat those individuals fairly. In closing, I want to say that this is something that I very, very much want to do, and I think you will send such a strong message of support to the community, which I've been working on in the last period of time since the election, developing support for all of you out there. We're changing the perception in Beaumont. There's a large group of people that are out there speaking positively of you. Help us by sending that message that we're not going back to the old way of doing things, that we heard the voters at the last election. It's unprecedented for 3 council members to be removed at the same election. The people are listening and the people are reacting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Ron Roy.
Good evening, Council. When you lose someone like Jeff Fox, moving on should not be easy. It should be hard. That is why I understand that the City Council is taking its time about getting it right and filling his seat. And I'm sure it's on your minds that his shoes will be almost impossible to fill for all the remarkable things he did for the City of Beaumont, for his service to his country, county, and city, for his larger-than-life personality, and the passion that he brought to ensuring his beloved lifelong home was the very best and the most beautiful. But what connected me to Jeff Fox during our conversations and council meetings was how much our views aligned regarding the greatest threat to Beaumont's future, which is large-scale, homogeneous, unsustainable housing and warehouses, and the direction of Beaumont's future, how that should go. Jeff Fox grew up his entire life here and watched it transform from a small agricultural town known for its ranches and orchards to a suburban city of 45,000 people with a new crop of residents from parts all around the U.S. and the world, bringing in different interests and cultures. Like many council members in Riverside County, Jeff faced the onslaught of large-scale developers who wanted to farm Beaumont, not for cherries, apples, or almonds, but for houses. Thousands and thousands as far as the eye can see, and warehouse complexes the size of small cities. However, to his credit, Jeff Fox showed political courage in the face of large and powerful development interests, fighting courageously and effectively against large-scale projects because he was more concerned about what was best for his fellow citizens than developers, and was willing to act accordingly. I saw it firsthand in the council meetings of June and July 2013 when Jeff spoke against the Heartland Specific Plan warehousing proposal of over 6 million square feet of warehouses, saying that he did not want to leave a legacy to his children of polluting warehouses. Jeff's actions helped turn the tide against the project. Can you imagine what would have happened had he not been there to make his case and his vote? The 2014 council election clearly reflects that Beaumont residents want change. For me, the change needed is for the council to set the agenda for growth rather than the developers. From homogeneous mega housing tracts and warehouses that have taken over well over half our city's land toward a different direction of protecting the city's last remaining open spaces and creating diverse aesthetic and sustainable uses, as well as the restoration and preservation of its historic areas. In making your final decision, please remember that you're voting for change, not the status quo, and for that share of Jeff Fox's legacy, where he fought to preserve what makes Beaumont unique in its region and the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, David Weiner.
Good evening, Mayor Lara, Mayor Pro Tem White, and council members. When I got up last week, I didn't realize that I was getting into the middle of a horse race, and that's all right. You've gotten a lot of lobbying here tonight. What I know about both candidates, I have nothing against either of them. What I do want to talk to you about real briefly is what happened in the last election. You guys, we've heard it so many times tonight. There's clearly a feeling of change in Beaumont and a resistance to going back to the old way of doing things. And this is a really tough decision, even though it's only for 9-10 months. I hope you guys and women really take that to heart. I know you're up here trying to do the best things possible for the city and its residents, and this is not an easy decision. Whether you make a decision, whether it goes to an election, we're going to be going through this again in November, and I see it down in other parts of the county. It's happened in the Coachella Valley. It's happening here, but take some time, be thoughtful. I urge you not to go back to the old way of doing things and to embrace the decision that you have in front of you and do the best you can for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Mayor, what do you wish to do on the former speaker, Mr. Dominguez?
Yes. Is that the last speaker?
Yeah, you want to bring him back?
Okay. Yes, please.
Victor Dominguez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to come back. I had a squeaky voice, so I had to get some water. Mayor and council, I really particularly enjoyed our last speaker's comments because he says multiple times, let's not get back to the way we used to do things. He said that a couple times. And that kind of strikes a chord with me a little bit because is he referring to the lack of transparency? Is he referring to the cloak and dagger politics that entrench this community? That's what he's referring to, right? That's what he's insinuating. But the sad part about it is, who does Mr. Weiner speak for? Is he speaking for himself? Or is he a political puppet that comes up here and just dances on a string because somebody's pulling him? Where does Mr. Weiner live at? Does he live in the community? Does he own a business in the community? Which one of you four does he have ties to? Is it Mr. White? I know it's not Mayor Lara. I know it's not Councilwoman Brenda. Question mark in the last one? I don't know. But please, when somebody comes up here and says, let's not get back to the politics of the old days, look at the messenger. Because when that messenger is delivering that message, ask yourself, who is he? Why is he delivering this message to me? And what's his agenda? Does Mr. Weiner live in the community? Does Mr. Weiner, I'll tell you that, no. Does Mr. Weiner own a business in the community? No. What is his ties to the community? Nothing more than a political pawn. And this is what I'm tired of. I'm tired of the backdoor politics that is choking our community, choking our citizenry, especially the seniors, because of personality and because of your guys' and I'm not saying, I shouldn't say all, it's not all. So what I'm getting at is this. When a person speaks up here in front of you, don't buy into all their rhetoric, because trust me, there's more to it behind the scenes than that. And I hope one day that I do not have to get up and blog and put my facts forward, but I will. Trust you that. I will always disclose my facts. And I will always pull the covers over the wolf who pretends to be sheep among us. So I hope that you all make an intelligent decision, because we got two wonderful candidates. I'm not going to say anything bad about any one of them. They're both awesome people. They both care about the community. And they both want to see Beaumont prosper and grow and come out successful. So with that in mind, just keep aware of the sheep in wolf's clothing.
Thank you very much for your comment.
No further speakers.
No further speakers, so I will close the public comment at 6:38. What I'll do is we'll have each council member go ahead and make a comment or ask any questions, and then when we're completed with that, we'll go ahead and move. We'll hopefully have a motion at that point.
Okay.
Councilmember Roscoe, would you like to start?
Yeah. Mayor, for clarification, you're going to start the 5 minutes at this point then for each one?
Yes, we'll start both clocks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me know I can go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I wanted to address the community and two applicants and my colleagues up here. I've had the opportunity after our last council meeting since our last council meeting to kind of meet with both applicants for a very lengthy time to really get to know both of them. I think I've done my due diligence prior to that day as well, kind of calling or interviewing each of the candidates about 5 to 10 minutes and kind of going over their applications. And kind of made my choice at that time. But I know the council has put in front of us a decision to make between two candidates. And, did it in the open, met with both candidates right here at the Beaumont Cafe, and just met with them and asked them questions that I had concerns with. And, at one point, it was, it came to my conclusion, I think to all of our conclusion, that both candidates are very similar or alike in a lot of ways. And then one thing that they had truly in common was the love for our city, and wanting to make sure that whoever is selected out of the two, that they have the best intentions for our city. I've also had the opportunity to kind of have a table talk with residents in Solera and as well as Four Seasons. And, my weekend was busy. I shared that with both the applicants. They saw me running around and arranging time to meet with them. I've kind of got a reawakening in terms of where our constituents, my constituents, lie in terms of the direction. They reminded me that the voters spoke in 2014, and that each and one of us up here represents them all across the aisle. And I'm going to try my best in making my decision based on my conversations with both of them, and I respect that fact, and I hope they respect me from the conversations I had with them, because I think we during those conversations we've kind of understood each other, and I both encouraged them to continually to be involved in our community, because these are both great applicants. They have their visions and their desires for the city. One in particular, whatever happens, I know what his vision is for the city. I respect that, and the other applicant wants to come and serve the community now. And so my decision is heartbreaking, because I got to know both of these people, not just as applicants, but as people from this community, and how much their desire is. I also respect Councilman White's comments that were up here, that we've had. I've also respect Brenda Knight's comments. And even in times that we disagree, I respect them, making my decision even harder. So at this time, I would like to put a recommendation on the floor. I know others have not been able to speak, but if I can put a recommendation on the floor, don't get a second, or at least to hold until it does get a second, then I'm good with that. But I hope the council recommend, I would like to nominate Della Condent to fill the vacant seat that we have on the council. And again, I'll wait until other council members have the opportunity to speak. So.
Hey, thank you. Councilmember Knight.
Well, good evening, everyone. Yes, we've got a really, really tough decision here. And I want to ask a quick question of our treasurer. How many people from Solera do we have on our financial committee? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I just thought
I believe it's 3.
3.
I believe it's 3.
Okay. Besides,
double check.
Does that count you? I can't remember.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't counting me. I forgot I lived there. I think it's still 3.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember.
I'll check while you...
That's fine. I know we have a very large presence there and in our community from the Solera, and we also have Four Seasons, and besides our treasurer. And my perspective for each of you, I'm going back on my background of interviewing people, personnel, looking to fill a position, and sometimes, and this is really tough, Dr. C, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I was actually the one that supported you to put you on our finance committee. I think that you'll do fantastic. You have incredible things to bring. For looking at Mr. Belingett, up here, I'm the only one, excuse me, that has sat on our planning commission. And to me, far more than anything, that experience brings a huge wealth of knowledge and understanding of sitting on the council. There is value in that. And so when you look at me, what I'm doing, Mr. Belingett probably and I are probably on opposite sides of the political aisle. That's not what I'm looking at. This is not political. What I'm looking at is here, right now, we're going to put somebody in what I call the council, that we're working in a gauntlet, really, truly. And it has been tough beyond belief. And I'm not looking, for me, I'm looking at what is the issue. And fundamentally, the issue for me is to put someone in that this idea of old Beaumont and new Beaumont, I don't buy that anymore. What I want to see is someone that's got a history of our community, which Mr. Fox had. He helped us vote in the votes that we voted on to come to some really good decisions. Our council has been phenomenal. We've worked together, we've worked hard, but there's value in that. And so coming from me and how I'm looking at things, I'd love to see another woman up here. But when I look at both people and I say, who can step in and really just get going in a matter of really short time, that would be Mr. Belingett. And he understands our business community, our development community, a whole bunch of things that come into play that will be an asset to us. So I would like to put forth a motion for Mr. Belingett, and we'll go down the line.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Knight. Mayor Pro Tem White?
Good evening. I do agree. The idea of old politics versus new politics is predominant in my mind. I think it's a shame, and we saw an example of it today, that even the new Beaumonts, if that's what we want to call it, are eager to make connections to people when those connections don't exist. I have been up front with everyone and said that anyone who wants to meet with me, I'd be happy to sit down. I'm not afraid to answer questions. And I just think it's a shame to see someone like Mr. Weiner, who has taken part in our meetings, get supposedly tarnished by agreeing with me on a certain position. I first met Mr. Weiner when he came up in council and asked us to reach out to him, and none of us did. He followed in the next council meeting. I met him out in the hallway and took a break and said, listen, anytime you want, here's my card, give me a call, I'll be happy to sit down and have coffee with you. And that is to the extent of my knowing Mr. Weiner. But I think that's a good example of what I saw last week and what I saw this week, and why I'm basing my decision on basically what Mr. Dominguez talks about. I also was able to sit down with Mr. Belingett for probably about an hour and a half. We had a long discussion. I explained to him that if he's selected to be on the council, I have no problem working with him. I welcome the intellectual debate that we would have based on it appears from the start that we are on different sides of many of the important issues. He's at a disadvantage because he doesn't know everything that I know, and I understand that. But last week we saw the who's who in Beaumont come in and parade in and support Mr. Belinga, and I hate to do exactly what was done to me today and has been done to me in the past, but here's where I'm coming from. We had leaders from the school board, the hospital board, the Chamber of Commerce, the Parks and Rec, people who have been involved in leading the direction of the city for the last 20 years, and it was great to see them in here. It's the first time we've seen them in here since I was nominated, since I was put on the board, with the exception of Mr. Valdivia. You've been here a number of times. And they're not here tonight. And tonight we had a number of people come out from the community, new faces, people who have been directly affected by some of the decisions that we've made up here, some of the difficult decisions we made, and we still have to make. And so I'm basing my decision on what I think is in the best interest, short-term and long-term, for the city of Beaumont. And I also believe, I haven't changed my position, I still believe that Dr. Condon is what we need right now. And so when the time comes, I'll be happy to second your motion, Mr. Orozco. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem White.
Mayor White, I'm sorry, Mayor Laura, could I clarify the question, because I did not answer Council Member Knight when she asked. I did look it up.
Sure.
So I can answer you. There are 3 members, including me, that live in Solera, and there are 3 citizen members who do not live in Solera.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that we have 2 very qualified candidates based on the resumes that I reviewed and the responses that were given to questions in last week's council meeting. I believe both candidates are well qualified, and I think they would serve the city well in their capacity to finish serving out the 10-month term. With 2 qualified candidates, I don't feel that there would be a need for the city to spend thousands of dollars on a special election that will only go to further put us into debt. So looking at the resumes and listening to the questions or going over the questions from responses from both candidates, I think that what the city has to face over the next 10 months, and I think that's what we have to look at is the next 10 months, because we don't know what the next election will bring us. We'll be looking at contracts. We'll be looking at working with other agencies, improving our relationships with them. At this time, we do not have a lobbyist in Sacramento, and I think that that's an important item that may be coming up here shortly with the things we're working on with the state. It's my opinion that Dr. Condon has an edge in that regard, and along with Mayor Pro Tem White, I agree. I think that at this point in the cities, where the city is right now, it would be the best candidate to help us continue to move forward. And with that, I'll go ahead and take a motion.
There's a motion on the floor.
You have a motion on the floor? I have a second.
I'll second that.
So the first motion was by Councilmember Orozco to nominate Della Condon, and we have a second by Mayor Pro Tem White. Can you take a roll and vote on that? Roll call vote. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Aye.
3-1. Passes for Dr. Della Condon.
At this time, we need to administer the oath of office.
Mark wants you.
I need to apologize. Mr. Hughes is here, so maybe we take a break. What do we do?
We need a mic. Oh. And will that reach, Bob?
Up closer. Find out.
If you could share the mic so it's on the record, please.
Can you hear me here? All right. The execution of this oath is required by Article 20, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of California. I state your name.
Dr. Della Condon,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
And that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
I do further swear or affirm that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that now advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or the State of California by force or violence or other unlawful means.
And I do further swear or affirm that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that now advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of the State of California by force or violence or other unlawful means.
That within the 5 years immediately preceding the taking of this oath or affirmation, I have not been a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that advocated the overthrow of the government of the United States or the State of California by force or violence or other unlawful means, and that during such time I hold the position of council member.
That within the 5 years immediately preceding the taking of this oath or affirmation, I have not been a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that advocated the overthrow of the government of the United States or the State of California by force or violence or other unlawful means, and that during such time as I hold the position of council member,
I will not advocate nor become a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of the State of California by force or violence or any other unlawful means.
I will not advocate nor become a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of the State of California by force or violence or other unlawful means.
Subscribed and sworn to me this 25th day of January 2016.
Subscribed and sworn to me this 25th day of January 2016.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and may I say, I would like to say I am very humbled by the trust put in me by the members of this city that I love, and I will serve you well. Thank you.
Dr. Condon.
Thank you so much. Have a seat.
Yes. Can we, Mayor, can we take a 5-minute break?
We'll take a 5-minute recess. Go ahead and bring the meeting back to order at 7:06. Brings us to item 4B, Small Business Growth Program.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before City Council tonight's a proposal of a small business growth program which would extend many of the same programs that are offered currently to the businesses and had started during the recession period. Although that recession's over, many of these programs offer meaningful incentives to the city businesses. I have a list of the different incentive programs that are offered under this item. One's the Beaumont Business Resource Center, and that's assistance here at City Hall as well as on our website, providing information, guidance, referral services to small businesses, large businesses, and other people that are interested in doing business within the city out of their home, possibly. The second item, and probably the most important in the program, is the Postponement of Improvements program. And what that does is it allows businesses which are moving into existing buildings within the city to postpone standard improvements with a landowner-signed agreement. These improvements typically include parking, landscaping, fencing, things as simple as trash enclosures that exist, but new state law requires a recycle bin. And how do you fit a recycle bin and a trash bin in an old enclosure that only was meant and designed to house a trash bin? Well, it costs money, and sometimes the new business owner is really good at making food or providing tax services or so forth, and they're not a specialist in building trash enclosures. So what we allow them to do is postpone those types of improvements for a certain period of time that they can start their business, create a client base, create a customer base, make some money, and that way they can use some of the money they just earned by starting the business in the city to create or construct some of those improvements that are required in the conditions of approval. One of the key ones is the street improvements. And you'll notice in here that all the other types of improvements have a time limit of 5 years based on the type of improvements. Street improvements do not have a time limit, and I'll tell you why. Street improvements are required on every new business, and what that means is if a business or even a house does not have curb gutter sidewalk out in front of that business, or if a street is dilapidated or alligatored or needs improvement, the city actually conditions that business to provide all of those improvements at their cost. And sometimes it's expensive. Like I said, the CPA isn't a person that can do curb gutter sidewalk. They know people, but it still is going to cost them money. The other issue we've ran into is in older parts of Beaumont, curb gutter sidewalks don't exist. So to require a business to install a curb gutter sidewalk around, say, 50, 60, 100 linear feet, from which both sides of that business will not have a curb gutter or sidewalk, actually can create a larger problem than exists today. So what we do is we try to sign the businesses up to this postponement program, hoping that enough new businesses locate within a block and that they can team up to provide the improvements together at a reduced cost for them, as opposed to requiring a business to install 60 feet of curb, which in theory could result in a problem upstream or downstream from that location, because it could alter the current flow of water today. There's Beaumont Quality of Life programs within the small business program. There's an ombudsman program which city staff's available to meet with new applicants and landowners to mediate conditions and improvement agreements. Temporary outdoor display program. If you drive up and down 6th Street, you will see this program being utilized today and tomorrow, and that allows businesses to display their wares outside of the building. Believe it or not, our current city code prohibits outdoor display of merchandise, but we found over the years that allowing them to do that under this program allows them to display merchandise. They take it in at night, and it looks pretty nice. What the code was intended to do is that everyone doesn't have things outside their business, but there are businesses that utilize this program, and it looks pretty nice, and they get to display their wares outside.
Antique stores.
One of the other ones is the portable A-frame sign program. Same as the prior issue. City code prohibits A-frames, but we have decided, and prior council has approved us to allow these on a temporary nature, in which the A-frame goes out. It does not prohibit pedestrian access on the sidewalk. That's one of our rules, and they take it in at night. And lastly is cooperation with the Building Industry Association Directional Sign Program. And I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Orozco?
Yes. On some of these items here, and by the way, I appreciate your report. I think you did a great job in providing this information here. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions here in regards, not particular to, I know, with, like, for example, the postponement of improvement programs, but just the whole entire small growth plan, program. I know due to the lack of resources that we have here, it's a little more difficult to kind of go a little beyond that. How would you feel? I would like to make a recommendation to the council today about a economic development committee that I think would be useful for not just our staff here, our expertise with the staff, but also with some council members as well as the treasurer and some members of the community, business owners, along with like the chambers, to work together to kind of, you know, get really into the needs of our community and business owners. Because one of the biggest concerns is, I think, I know we work with the chamber, and we've been pulling off financially in support of the chamber because of economic times, but I believe there's other ways. Just having been been on the board and served on the board as board president for our chambers, that there's other things that we can do for small business growth. What do you think about doing for maybe bringing to the council an economic development committee?
I think that is a good idea. To tie it back to this item, if, say, the city created economic development committee program in which we had city staff and the different stakeholders that you mentioned, if we had that program, then it wouldn't have just been myself and Rebecca that would have created this. It would have been a collaboration effort amongst the development community, the stakeholders that you mentioned, as well as staff, council, planning commission, those types of representatives. So it's definitely a good idea. I've seen them work in the past, and I think that if there was one, they could have probably come up with some sort of concept that could have been included in this report that I may not have thought of.
I created a draft just, 10 minutes before I came here, and I just wanted to, if my words haven't got off in that form of explaining it, I just wanted to share some notes that I have that I would like to share with council members.
Would this be on forming an economic development committee?
Well, it goes with this. I would like to recommend that we work with staff based on this, and
we'd have to agendize that item, would we not?
You can always, as a council, make a motion. If, for example, it was about forming a committee, you could make a motion to agendize that at the next council meeting. But it sounds like this is more intertwined with what's being discussed.
Well, it's a separate item, but it goes with this. It's connected, like Kyle had mentioned. Because what I know the recommendation is to approve this resolution, but I kind of like to bring it back in terms of maybe, I don't know how soon, like what was the reason behind bringing this to us today? Can it be held maybe another month or so?
Councilmember Orozco, can you kind of wrap that up, please?
Yes, for the council to have the opportunity to kind of discuss the option of maybe developing an economic development committee.
There is some urgency regarding this program. So as of January 1st, the city staff does not have an ability to sign these postponement agreements. And in theory, the different businesses that are utilizing the outdoor display or A-frame sign programs today and tomorrow are technically in violation of the municipal code. Hopefully code enforcement's not listening if you don't approve this tonight.
One more question. Okay. One more question to follow up real quick is, would we be able to amend this resolution?
Absolutely.
Later,
It's a resolution.
So if we decide to do that. I don't want to be obligated to something and.
Mr. Mayor, you can always amend a resolution. Resolutions become effective immediately. They can be changed. However, if you enter into any agreements, and you would be, of course, bound by those agreements.
Right, but any new agreements after the revision would be, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Knight?
Yes, sir. Mr. Warsinski, I know the Ombudsman program has been very, very popular. Are we able to do that right now with our staff?
That's a good question.
Yes, I'm currently fulfilling that role on existing businesses as well as new businesses, and even opportunities in which they're thinking of locating within the city of Beaumont. I'm typically the person that answers the phone or is willing to set up a meeting or meet with those individuals, whether it's here in the city or if I need to drive to where they're at.
Hey, thank you. And the outdoor display, I know a lot of these have really helped. I've gotten feedback, and I hope we can keep them going. But thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem White?
Thank you. Mr. Orozco, I agree with you, and I'd like to make a motion right now that we agendize that for a future council meeting.
Can you clarify the motion?
That we agendize the discussion of developing an economic development committee.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay.
It's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem White and a second by Councilmember Orozco. Okay, roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Aye.
All right, and so I have a couple questions for you, Kyle. This is an extension, it says it's sort of like an extension of the same programs we're offering now, or what we're offering now through an ordinance?
They were done from some of those old stimulus programs.
Okay.
So some of these programs we thought up during the recession. Some were added on in subsequent stimulus programs. So those were all done by resolution.
And my concern, and maybe you've already experienced this in the past, is who decides which new business? First of all, let me back up a second. Businesses versus landowners. So if a landowner owns a strip mall or a mall of 5 or 6 buildings and brings in a new business, who are we talking about as far as getting the extensions on the improvements? Is that the landowner or the business? And does it affect that a new business comes in, or is it when the new landowner purchases the building?
It triggers on every new business.
Okay.
Technically, the business is required to install the improvements. I always tell people, like, if you were going to open an ice cream place, that you, as the tenant, should probably at least have a conversation with your landowner on how to split the costs, if you will, because I don't necessarily think it's fair that the tenant should be improving the property they don't own.
Okay.
But on the improvement agreements, I know that the landowner needs to sign it as well as the business, because it carries with the land.
Okay, but this is on improvements that are a requirement of the business, not necessarily the landowner.
It triggers on the business.
Okay. Is there a process, if someone is granted an extension and someone else is not, is there a grievance process? Because I didn't see that anywhere in here. What happens when someone doesn't agree that you've granted the neighbor down the street the opportunity, but not me?
Sure. On all conditions of approval from the planning department, you do have an appeal process. So if you don't agree with the staff's decision, you can file an appeal, and that goes to the planning commission. And then if they're not happy with the planning commission's ruling, they actually have the ability to appeal to city council.
So does the planning commission, are they overseeing these approvals?
No, currently it's a staff approval.
But according to this ordinance, would it then come to the planning commission to rubber stamp an approval by staff?
No.
Okay.
Only if the item is already scheduled for Planning Commission. For example, if it is a conditional use permit because it's a new business that's selling beer and wine or tobacco.
Okay.
Planning Commission is the body that approves that item. Or if it's a brand new shopping center, it kind of doesn't work for this because we'll require them to build the street and everything with it. But
Certain applications automatically go to Planning Commission.
Okay,
Others
but the approval that says you can extend these improvements is something that's made by staff and...
Staff, if the staff approved the application.
Okay.
And then if it's a Planning Commission application that's approved at a meeting, then they would be the ones to approve the extension.
One last question. This is sort of related, but it was generated in my mind by a comment that I heard earlier regarding the signs across the street. There's a mural that takes up the entire side of a building. Do we have any kind of rules, ordinances against, for or against those kinds of signs?
I've seen it, specifically that one, because it shocked me after the day it went up, because I wasn't used to seeing that face.
No, and I really think it changes the appearance of what we
It's tricky. When you look at how a sign is defined in the municipal code, it needs to be for, and don't quote me, I'm going to paraphrase, like commercial messaging.
Okay.
That's defined as a sign. Things like that may be considered under municipal code as artwork, or paint, and those don't, to my knowledge, have requirements. You may notice that throughout the city there's not color palettes that we allow for. So if you really wanted to do it, and I don't advise this to everyone that's listening, if you wanted to paint your business bright green, we can't stop you.
Okay.
Because we don't have an approved color palette that's acceptable or not.
And I see my time's run out, so let me just finish by saying, can we look into that? Because and I'm not trying to offend anyone, but it reminds me of parts of LA that I try to avoid. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilman Condon?
I have had an opportunity to read this, and I think it's all of these items are going to be good for business, and I think that the Economic Development Committee is spot on and could become the heartbeat of our community's growth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kyle, on this, and I know that we need to move forward and get this approved, but and maybe we'll look at it with the Economic Development Committee that's put together, but street improvements is a big dollar item as opposed to a trash enclosure, or do we require them, or do we allow business owners to phase, or do we give them time frames to get like the trash enclosure in, since that's a smaller ticket item than, say, street improvements or curb and gutter?
Yes, sir. On things like that, landscaping, fencing, depending on the size or the extent of a parking lot resurfacing, we'll typically give them a 2-year period or even a 1-year period to complete the improvements. And those we're not looking, ideally, to extend to the full 5-year period.
Okay.
It's a judgment call that comes down to a staff level on whether they're really meeting the intent of the code and they're participating with what they need to do, or if they're kind of just playing, well, we don't want to do it now, we'll want to do it next year. And then if we get the same feeling next year, then we may not approve that extension.
Okay. ADA accessibility, that's probably one of the first things we require? Or?
We don't postpone ADA accessibility. That'll be through the building department and their inspection of each new business, so that is not something that we're able to postpone.
Or that's a part of this program?
No.
Okay. Kyle, I just want to, I've seen you in action on working with business owners, and I just wanted to say what a good job that I thought you did, and to keep up the good work, and thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Mayor?
No.
We need to...
Public comment.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to tell you that.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and open... Do we have speakers?
We have one speaker, Mayor, yes.
I'm going to go ahead and open public comment at 7:26.
First speaker, Judy Bingham.
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. Mayor Lara and council members, existing small businesses in Beaumont need help, especially on 6th Street. I am a small business owner in Beaumont and have been since 1986. And I am still on a septic tank. It is shameful what Urban Logic and Alan Kapanicus did to Beaumont's Main Street USA that once contributed to this small town feel of Beaumont, and that is 6th Street. David Castaldo and Roger Berg did everything they could as council members to destroy my business. They even came down from the podium up there and said horrible things about me and my business, and I think some of you were aware of that. My business in the early days won the Beautification Award. I gave up on the chamber many years ago. There were years when people avoided driving down 6th Street because it was targeted for ticketing by the police department to drive people down to 2nd Street where there was more tax money available. And I am very well aware of that, and I know it happened. All anyone has to do is drive down 6th Street, and it screams small-town corruption, and it is shameful what you have done to these businesses.
Thank you very much for your comment. Do you have any other speakers?
No further speakers, Mayor.
With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment at 5:29. 7:29, excuse me. I'll catch up with you shortly.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem White, second by Councilmember Knight to adopt the resolution. Roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Aye. That brings us to item 4C, resolution to amend the master loan agreement by and between Beaumont Redevelopment Agency and the City of Beaumont.
Mr. Mayor, this item relates to the redevelopment agency dissolution process, and I'm going to introduce you to Charles Gallagher with my firm, who's been working with city staff on that dissolution process. There's a requirement that the master loan agreement be amended, changed, and there's some other items on the agenda that Mr. Gallagher is going to be addressing with you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gallagher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Yes, I'm here to discuss the status of the former RDA wind-down process, and in particular as it relates to the placement of the master loan, or the amendment of the master loan agreement and its placement on the upcoming recognized obligation payment schedule, or ROPS, and the resolution to that end before you tonight. Just very briefly as background, as you may know, in September 1994, the former redevelopment agency and the city, which was its creator entity, entered into the original master loan agreement under which the city agreed to loan funds to the RDA for projects, infrastructure, administration of the RDA under terms that were consistent with the then Health and Safety Code. City staff has been working very diligently and has determined that approximately $19.8 million in principal remains outstanding and unpaid to the city under the master loan agreement. Now, the city's right to repayment of the loan has been significantly affected by the adoption, the enactment of what is termed the Great Dissolution Law. As you may know, the legislature formally dissolved the California RDAs effective February 1st, 2012. And under the dissolution statutes, the city elected to serve as the successor agency. On December 8th of last year, the successor agency received its finding of completion from finance. This allows the successor agency to place loan agreements between the former RDA and the city on the agency's upcoming ROPS as an enforceable obligation, provided that the Oversight Board makes a finding that the loan was for, quote, legitimate redevelopment purposes. As amended last September, the Health and Safety Code also limits repayments to loans where the former RDA was obligated to repay the money pursuant to a specific repayment schedule. Therefore, to bring the master loan within the requirements of the Health and Safety Code today, the city and the successor agency will have to amend the loan to add a repayment schedule. A proposed repayment schedule is attached to the draft you have as Exhibit A, and this is a practice that has been accepted by by finance in other instances. The amendment provides for no interest, as our experience shows that finance has been rejecting the interest rates that were applied to these by various cities throughout the states. But in any event, if it is accepted and approved by finance and the Oversight Board, the loan would be repaid at a statutory 3% interest rate, first applying to principal and then to interest. Also, the loan repayments are governed by various criteria in the Health and Safety Code, which I don't think, in a very somewhat convoluted formula, which I don't think I have to go into tonight, but can address if you would like. And it's also addressed in footnotes to the debt service repayment proposed schedule that is attached as an amendment to the amendment to the master loan. However, the bottom line is that for repayment to happen, the Health and Safety Code requires that the loan be placed on the ROPS for this upcoming fiscal year, 2016-2017, and the deadline for that is this coming February 1st. If that is missed, then the city would have to wait a full year to seek repayment of the loan again. If repayment is to occur, just so briefly that you should know, it has been determined by city staff that in the first fiscal year, 2016-17, there's likely to be no repayment because the present surplus in the RT PPF funds under the formula created by finance, there's simply not enough surplus or residual after the pass-through payments have been made and the enforceable obligation payments have been made, so that there would not be any repayment this year. However, we do anticipate that this would change for the better, and that the present shortfall, which is really very slight, with even a modest growth in property tax revenues, would likely result in some payments starting to be made the next year to repay the loan. And to the extent the repayments are not made or are underpaid, they would roll over into the next year, and and it would ultimately be repaid in full. That is certainly the goal. And then, that might extend the term, the repayment term, or the number of years of repayment for the loan to be repaid. Now, as some of you might be aware, we know that there might be some potential problems with the repayment, with getting the repayment, the loan reinstated. It was rejected previously by the Oversight Board. We were not involved in that process at that time, and I don't believe many people here were either. But I believe that the city staff has done some exceptional work in filling some of the gaps that were cited by the Oversight Board previously, specifically in locating additional backup and reconstructing the history of the loan. I think they've done an exceptional job with that, with limited time and resources, so we stand that, I think we have quite a much better presentation to make to the Oversight Board. Ultimately, it's possible that finance would still reject this, but that does not mean that's the end of the process. There's a meet and confer process with finance that you may be aware of that we could go through. But the bottom line is that if the city wants to have any chance to have a repayment of the master loan at this time begin, we would strongly recommend that the loan be amended on the terms recommended and that it be included in the upcoming ROPS.
Mr. Mayor, and just to be clear for the record, after we get through with this item, we're then going to go into the successor agency meeting, and so a lot of what Mr. Gallagher just covered would apply there, and when we open that meeting, he'll briefly repeat some of the things that he discussed during his report, just so that we have a clearer record and clear minutes for both agencies.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, I have some questions.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Off the clock, I like the idea of the clock, and I'll stay with it. But I just wanted a point of clarification so people understand. that we are getting our 5 minutes. If we want to take the whole 5 minutes, then it's another person's turn to speak for 5 minutes. But as long as there's still 30 minutes left on the agenda item, then after everyone's had their chance to speak, people can come back and say, I'd like another 3 minutes or I'd like another 4 minutes. Is that how this is working?
Point of order. Sorry?
I was going to say, point of order.
We could do that, I think, if there's time left on the...
That's what I was, yeah. I mean, I don't expect to come back, but I think others might want to come back, and as long as we stay within our 30 minutes, that, you know, I like the idea of the 5-minute shot clock, because I think it will move things along, and, you know, I could use my 5 minutes and then realize that I don't have any more questions because they were answered by somebody else's questions.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Just kind of make the council aware, my colleagues, that we do have something in place already, policy. I don't mind respecting the whole 5 minutes thing among us, but I just want to make sure that we also respect what we've already put in place in terms of 30 minutes overall. And I kind of like the idea. I'm just saying, reminding the council that that's something that we came up with before. So
I'd like to make a motion that we consider redrawing the ordinance to include this. I just thought it would make sense to give us a couple meetings to see if it works.
Yeah.
Before we go through the process of doing an ordinance.
One second. Okay. Councilmember Roscoe?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I help clarify that point of order? You adopted an ordinance that gives 30 minutes to the council for discussion of an agenda item. However, under the rules of procedure that you adopted, the chair of the meeting may limit the time allotted to speakers. Okay. So you've got 30 minutes to work with on an agenda item, but you can limit the amount of time that speakers, as long as it's done fairly. I mean, you can't give one council member a minute and somebody else 9 minutes.
Understand.
But you have that ability to do that under the existing ordinance the way it is.
Thank you for that clarification.
Point of clarification, Mayor Pro Tem White made a motion.
I withdraw my motion at this point.
Okay.
I fully endorse the Laura shot clock. Mr. Gallagher, we couldn't do this before because we already had a loan payment plan on an earlier loan, and so, you know, for a while now, I and others have asked that we get a finding on this $20 million before we continue to put it on our budget as an asset. So something changed, and I think it was a law that changed that said that once we had a plan in place for the other funding, that we could then go back and now validate the other agreement, the $20 million loan. Is that correct?
That is correct. In September, the legislature amended the dissolution law and the Health and Safety Code quite extensively and did allow for this process for loans that had been previously rejected or disallowed to be resubmitted for possible reinstatement.
Okay. And if there's concerns that a lot of us have over whether or not there was a validity of the loan and that kind of thing, that will be addressed through this ROPS process, correct?
That is correct. It can be addressed at the Oversight Board and through the process generally.
Now, when you speak about the Oversight Board, are you talking about the Beaumont Oversight Board, or are you talking about a state Oversight Board?
It's the Oversight Board, the local Riverside County.
Beaumont, okay.
Yeah.
So this could end the concerns over whether or not it's valid. And finally, these payments that we would receive if it gets approved are going to happen over a long period of time, and at the same time we're making payments to the county or the state on the other ones. I would imagine it's probably separate accounting procedure as opposed to just we get credit for this and don't have to pay that.
Well, I believe that there's a provision in the law. I'd have to double check, but I think it's that you have to make sure that you've paid all of those things back first.
Oh, okay, so we'd have to finish paying the other one back, and these payments, who would not? Mr. Warsinski's shaking his head. No.
Okay, but he prepared the schedule, so I will defer to his.
Okay, and that's my last question. So
I may have the enforceable obligations and the repayment of the loan. I think you're talking about another loan that the due diligence debt.
Correct.
Okay, no,
Correct.
then I'd stand corrected.
Okay.
I think those are separately accounted.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Knight?
How excited should we get about this? I'm trying, I've been watching this for a long time.
Can I respond to that, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor?
sir.
Yes, sir.
There is a process that we have to go through. It starts with, first we would amend the loan, and it would have the schedule of repayment. Then it goes, Thursday it would go to the Oversight Board, and they would have an opportunity to review the request. But then it goes through a vigorous meet and confer process with the Department of Finance, and we've been through that for other agencies. And it is not a walk in the park process. So they'll review it, and if there are problems, we'll have to deal with that through the Department of Finance. I don't want there to be a misconception that if the loan is amended, the master loan agreement's amended, and the loan gets included on our ROPS, that's a guarantee that the city's going to get repaid that loan. There are still steps we have to go through, and the state does not readily approve repayment of these loans. There's a process we have to go through. And ultimately, we want to go through the step here, and then with the Oversight Board, and hopefully that will go well, and then the real debate begins with the Department of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Pickney.
No, thank you. I'm very pleased to see the work that's been done on this. That's it.
Councilmember Orozco?
Yeah, I just want to concur with Councilman White. Thank you for asking the specific questions. The answer was one of mine. If I could, I would like to kind of defer to our Madam Treasurer. I think this kind of falls under loans and investments. I don't know if she had any comments to add to this. If that means yielding my time to you, then I would like to do that.
I'll just answer that a little bit. I have been involved in the meetings. I have been involved, staff has invited me to the meetings. What the city attorney said was definitely the impression I got from the meetings from the state, that this isn't a walk in the park, but staff did really take the challenge of getting the backup documentation and getting the paperwork in order. That is a huge difference for us. It's both put us in a very credible position with the state, as well as giving us a platform to actually move forward. And if we keep that same efficiency and documentation, I think that's very good, but they're not going to give up the money easily. So I do concur with the city attorney. So, and I'd like to stay involved in the meetings if I could, because I really do think that this is a very critical issue for the city.
Thank you very much.
I share that. I would like to make sure that our treasurer is abreast on that and she can participate on that.
Thank you. Dr. Condon?
Oh, thank you.
Excuse me.
Sorry. My turn?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank the attorney for such a clear explanation. I had reviewed the document, but just in anticipation, optimistically, I wanted to be prepared this evening. Thank you for those remarks, and I do appreciate the insight of our treasurer, and I concur with Mr. Orozco that I think your being involved in those meetings will help us keep and stay informed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to add.
Thank you.
We haven't opened it to public comment.
I'm sorry. I'm going to get this, I promise. I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment at 7:45.
Did you want to go the now or the redevelopment agency?
Now.
Now it's fine? Okay. We'll open, first speaker, Judy Bingham.
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. Mayor Laura and council members. I want to see those gaps that the staff has found, because in 1994, Mr. Gallagher says there was a master loan agreement. I don't know where it's been hidden all this time, but I definitely want to see it. I believe the $21.5 million was a plug number, and that former finance director William Alward inserted into the city's 2012 financial statements in an attempt to offset the city's liabilities. The city never had any revenue to loan the RDA. Bond requisitions confirm that all the money gifted to various Beaumont businesses was taken from the Melrose bonds. The State Controller's investigative report says, based on interviews with current staff members and documents reviewed, it appears that former finance director, city manager, and public works director had complete control over the bond proceeds, and each of them was personally benefiting financially. The City of Beaumont never met the financial qualifications to form a joint powers authority. To make matters worse, the city was self-insured with a worthless insurance policy issued by ERMAC, which was owned by Beaumont's former risk manager, James Gregg, a risk manager who, with his partner, Alan Kapanicus, was the city's and the citizens' biggest risk. I want to see that paperwork, and when I do a public records request for it, I want it to be given to me within 10 days.
Mr. Mayor, the original master loan agreement is attached as Exhibit B to the staff report.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
No further speakers, Mayor.
With that, I'll go ahead and close the public comment, 7:47.
So, just for clarification, the document that's been requested by... Sorry.
Judy Beaumont is already attached, correct?
Okay.
All of it?
That was just my question, if it was attached. So, and it was answered by the acting city manager. Yes.
Who signed it?
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the resolution to amend the master loan agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem White and a second by Councilmember Roscoe to amend the resolution. Approve the resolution to amend the master loan agreement. Roll call. Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Aye. Resolution passes. That brings us to, we have adjournment of this special city council meeting at 7:49. And we will move to special meeting of the city's Beaumont successor agency. And we'll just go ahead and call that 7:50.
We'll need to take a roll call.
Yes. Roll call. Agency Member Roscoe?
Here.
Agency Member Knight?
Here.
Agency Member Condon?
Here.
Vice Chairman White?
Here.
Chairman Lara?
Here. We don't need any actions on excused absences. We have any adjustments to the agenda? Looks pretty straightforward. No. So that brings us to item A, resolution to amend the master loan agreement by and between Beaumont Redevelopment Agency and the City of Beaumont.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Gallagher, since we're now in a separate entities meeting, to just briefly touch on the points that he made earlier regarding the amendment to the master loan agreement that you just voted on. Just very briefly, if you could go over the major points, why this item is on the agenda for the successor agency.
The item is on the agenda primarily because the successor agency is the other party to the master loan agreement. Again, it's the prerequisite to under the Health and Safety Code as amended. It's new requirements that it have a recognized or a definitive repayment schedule is the basis, the primary basis on which we need to amend the master loan agreement, and so the successor agency's approval and acceptance of that is required. Only at that point is the loan then eligible after the finding of completion that was recently issued on December 8th to place the master loan back onto the recognized obligation payment schedule and submit that to the Oversight Board for approval, and then ultimately, hopefully, to finance for repayment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council have any comment? No? I'm going to go ahead and open public comment at 7:51. Do we have any speakers?
No speakers, Mayor.
Then we'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:51.
Okay, I move to approve the resolution to amend the master loan agreement.
I second.
It's a motion by Agency Member Knight, second by Agency Member Condon. Roll call. Agency Member Roscoe.
Here. Oh, sorry, aye. Sorry about that.
Agency Member Knight.
Yes.
Agency Member Condon.
Yes.
Vice Chairman White.
Yes.
Chairman Lotta.
Aye. Motion carries. This brings us to item B, resolution to approve the successor agency administrative budget for the periods July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The successor agency, which became effective February 1st, 2012, is responsible for administrative functions needed to wind down the affairs of the former RDA. You've seen a couple of these in the past. They used to be for 6-month periods. So if you can think of the admin cost allowance done for the last ROP, so the recognized obligation payment schedule, it was for 6 months. Some of that new legislation that was approved that Charles mentioned in the last couple items was they allowed for annual ROPS as opposed to every 6-month period ROPS. So the one going forward is going to include fiscal year 16-17. So that would be the start of June all the way until, start of July 2016 all the way to June of 17. So the resolution before you tonight is to approve the administrative budget for the successor agency, and once the administrative budget is approved, it allows the successor agency to include that administrative budget on the next subsequent recognized obligation payment schedule. The law does allow for a calculation of the maximum and minimum administrative budgets that are allowed. We're near the minimum, so it is $250,000 per year. It used to be $125,000 every 6 months, so we just doubled that. We still provide it in a 6-month period because the ROPS format itself, and you'll notice this on the next item, still has the A and B period, which recognizes the 2 6 months. But successor agency admin costs involve the planning department, community development department, work finance director, the city manager, the city attorney, the accounting staff, as well as the deputy city clerk, and their roles, responsibilities associated with the successor agency are on that budget, as well as the average weekly breakdown, total hours, times their fully burdened rate. And I can answer any questions, and Onyx can answer any finance questions for you. Thank you.
Council have any comment?
I
or
do
questions?
do have a quick question.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
You're showing us the 2016 last half and the first half of 17. Are we approving both of those? You probably already said that. I was just looking on the numbers and missed that.
Yes, because the ROPS is now for a year.
Okay.
Instead of the 6 months, we're looking to do both admin budgets at the same time.
Okay, and so the 250, which is the minimum that we can request, will actually cover for both of those?
Yes.
Okay, and that money, is that actual money that we receive payments from? Or,
I'll tell you exactly how it happens. So the RDA project area still collects its property tax the same way it used to, except the city doesn't get it. It goes to the county, goes through what we call a waterfall, which the county takes their admin money. It goes through all the pass-throughs like it used to, except the county administers those pass-throughs as opposed to the city. And then obligations are paid. And this goes on the ROPS as an obligation. So that's next in line, is if the admin budget's on the ROPS, that gets paid as an obligation. That comes to us, and then whatever's left over gets split amongst all the taxing entities that represent the area, like normal property tax.
So this revenue is not affected by the payments that we're making on the other item?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by council? No? With that, I'll go ahead and open up public comment at 7:55.
No speakers, Mayor.
I'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:55. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
A second.
Okay, it's a motion to approve resolution by Agency Member Roscoe, second by Agency Member Knight. Roll call. Agency Member Roscoe?
Aye.
Agency Member Knight?
Yes.
Agency Member Condon?
Yes.
Vice Chairman White?
Yes.
Chairman Slaughter?
Aye. That brings us to item C, resolution to approve the recognized obligation payment schedule 2016-2017 A and B.
Mayor and Council, tonight before you is the recognized obligation payment schedule for fiscal year 2016-17, A and B. I call it that because that's what the form says. We just approved the admin budget, so that has been included in the recognized obligation payment schedule. The other item that we are now allowed to include on the ROPS is the City to Redevelopment Agency loan, and that would be for a total dollar amount of $19,836,646. Charles filled you in on the master loan agreement and the newly adopted amendment to that master loan agreement in conformance with state law. That goes back to 1994, and a preliminary detailed loan analysis has been provided to you by the Finance Department. That's included in Table 1, and that is the remaining outstanding balances from the city that was loaned to the RDA for projects and administrative costs related to operating in the projects that were constructed and performed within the redevelopment area. So that's before you tonight in Table 1. Table 2 is a breakdown of the capital expenditures identified in the general ledger from the Finance Department related to the project column on that previous table. I've also provided a detail of the second column on that Table 1, which is operational costs associated with city departments doing work for the redevelopment agency. And as we adjourned and convened the successor agency, that is basically how the redevelopment agency operated. You have a lot of the same staff members working on both the city's behalf and the redevelopment agency's behalf at the same time. And the master loan agreement, if you looked through it, allowed for up to 35% of council, planning, administrative services, community services, economic development, building department, departments like that, and the personnel that were utilized for the redevelopment agency, 35% of their costs could be attributed to the redevelopment agency as opposed to the city burdening, or the city burden 100% of their pay. When doing the math, it is a lot closer to 20%. So 20% of the cost from each of those people and people that were acting in that capacity were borne by the redevelopment agency. You can see the total costs there. And Onyx is here to answer any financial questions, and Charles is here to answer any tough loan agreement questions or dealings with the State Department of Finance for us. So I can answer any general questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wasinski. Any comments from council? No? Seeing none, do we have any public speakers?
None, Mayor.
So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open and close public comment at 8 o'clock. Councilmember Knight?
I move to approve resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Agency Member Knight and a second by Agency, Vice Chairman White to approve the resolution. Roll call. Agency Member Roscoe?
Aye.
Agency Member Knight?
Yes.
Agency Member Condon?
Yes.
Vice Chairman White?
Yes.
Chairman Lotta?
Aye. Motion carries. So with that, we'll adjourn the January 25th, 2016 special meeting of the City of Beaumont Successor Agency at 8:02. And that brings us back to reconvene the City of Beaumont City Council special meeting at 8:02. Then we'll start the meeting with the City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. You have in your packet tonight the year-end 2015 reporting of permit information that completes a decade worth of information on the monthly building permits. The second item in your packet is a response to public records requests. I believe Mr. Dominguez asked where his, Mr. Hallowell, can you stay 1 minute? Just one more minute? Mr. Dominguez asked at the last meeting about his records request, and this was a formal memo. He did receive the video as requested. And then lastly, going back to item 4A, Dr. Delacondon held a position on the Standing Financial Committee, and with her appointment to council, she is required to step down because we already have 2 council members on that. I'm not sure if the mayor would like to reorganize that or if you'd like to keep the same appointments from City Council. The reason I asked Mr. Hallowell to stay is he is the alternate, and it would be appropriate that he become now a committee member.
Do we need to act on that or make a motion to move Mr. Hallowell from an alternate into a formal committee member?
If he's an alternate, then the committee can take care of that and put him in that seat, but I think the city manager is right that you may want to appoint somebody to fill that alternate position. So that may be an agenda item that you want to have.
Right, and that was my next statement. If the committee appoints Mr. Hallowell, we will need to take applications. The council had appointed 2 alternates. The first alternate resigned his alternate position after the council meeting of December 14th, and Mr. Hallowell was the only alternate left. So right now, the Standing Financial Committee has no alternates.
Mayor?
May I make,
Councilmember Roscoe?
may I make a suggestion? Are we able to make nominations or appoint anybody from the community?
My recommendation is we take applications if that's what council so chooses to do. You can go without alternates, but having set that past practice of having 2 alternates, I need direction on leaving them vacant or taking applications.
Mayor, may I comment?
Yes.
I believe that we should, what's that?
Sorry.
I believe we should put it on an agenda to get 2 alternates as soon as possible, because I would like them to show up and be involved in case we do have to replace them. With 6 citizens on there, I'm sure it's likely we're going to have to replace another alternate. So I would like to see it as come back as an agenda item with the application process as well.
Do we have a concurrence with that?
I'm fine.
You want to do it that way? That's fine. I'm okay with that.
I think that way gives everybody an opportunity to...
So eventually it's going to go through the application process, and we're going to do that again, correct?
I think that's the recommendation of Mayor Pro Tem White, is to bring an item back, giving staff direction on taking applications.
So currently the alternate moves up to the committee member.
Well, City Attorney Pinckney said that that would happen at the meeting if the committee chooses that.
If it chooses, okay.
But there is a vacancy right now on the committee.
Okay. So we have consensus to go ahead and bring that back?
Okay. And that is to bring an agenda item back with the process of the applications, correct?
If it's possible, bring back an agenda item with the completed applications. I mean, we already know the process and how we went through it.
Okay.
Do we have enough time to advertise for that, or?
It would go in a week from Friday, so the 5th of February it would be in the newspaper.
Okay. So that's February 5th. Do we miss the first council meeting, or am I?
Yes.
Okay. So we bring it back to the second council meeting of February.
If we made the applications due by Wednesday of the following, it won't come back until probably the first meeting in March.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same time schedule.
Okay, so we'll advertise February 5th and bring applications back March, first meeting in March. And so that's why I asked you to stay, Mr. Hallowell.
Just a quick question, point of order. If would it be possible for us to approve one of the other folks who had applied and gone through the process already that didn't make the cut, the final 8? I mean, could we do that without going through this process?
That's entirely up to council.
And could we do that? I'm thinking Mr. Belingett was in that group, and I'm wondering if we could do that as a nomination, or do we need to go through an official process to do that?
No, I think if you want to make a motion, and if we have council concurrence, we could probably.
I would like to. Obviously, we need to check with him to make sure that he wants to do it. But I would, if I would nominate him to fill the alternate role if he so chooses.
Is that a motion?
We can't do it tonight.
No, you have to agendize it, but you can, of course, as the city manager said, choose from the list of people that previously applied, but it needs to be an agendized item.
I can put that on for the 2nd.
So
okay, so we could get that done sooner.
Yeah. So if you would you just bring back each of the candidates?
Yes.
That had previously filled out an application, and we can
make that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's a consensus?
That is a consensus, and we'll go ahead and do that on the next council meeting, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And then quickly, some other items for February 2nd. The Public Works Plan Check and Inspection Contract Award. We have some special events applications, one for Breezing Through Beaumont, one for the Cherry Festival. The third-party administrator claims RFP. We have a presentation by Fairway Canyon. They're going to do a brief presentation on the park that staff has been meeting with Fairway Canyon, Argent to be specific. There is a piece of property that's slated to be a park on the northeast corner of Palmer and Oak Valley Parkway.
She had to cancel that.
Sorry. We're going to go 16th with that. I apologize. Cheryl had to cancel. And lastly, the Planning Commission appointments will be on the meeting for February 2nd. We have some other items, but those are the highlights. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 6, City Clerk Report.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'd like to introduce Nicole Wheelwright as our new Deputy City Clerk. And I'll be meeting with her this week and hopefully finding time if Elizabeth has a busy schedule so we can go over some housekeeping issues. We've had a lot of public records requests that we're trying to sort out, so that's kind of the plan in between this week and the busy agenda coming up next week.
Our official appointment is this Friday.
Yes. I hope I didn't jump the gun, but anyway, we do plan to meet, so I want to let you know that I have a more thorough report coming up.
Thank you very much.
So I'll let you know when I...
Congratulations, Ms. Wheelwright.
Yes. Welcome.
And that's all.
That's it. Brings us to item number 7, City Attorney Report.
Just a reminder, the city manager and I have spoken about the list of litigation that the city has ongoing, and that will be posted with the second agenda each month, second regular meeting agenda each month. But other than that, I have nothing new to report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Brings us to item 8, Consent Calendar.
Mayor, I need to pull and then recuse myself from item 8E.
E as in Edward?
Yep.
Any other items council wishes to pull?
You know, I have a quick question about the minutes from November 9th. Is that just why it's, just help refresh my memory why, I mean, we've approved other minutes since then, haven't we?
No, we approved the November 3rd minutes.
Okay, so this is just
We are
the next
taking
one.
them in order.
Okay.
And actually, we now have 3 people trying to get caught up on the minutes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
So we don't need to pull that?
No, we do not need to.
Make a motion.
I'd like to pull, well, real quick, I have a couple quick questions on D as in dog and G.
D as in G.
Do you want to pull them, or do you just have a question?
I have a quick question, hopefully.
Okay.
We typically, looks like we're renting pumps for our lift stations as lift stations go down. And my question was, is it possible to purchase a pump that we could keep on hand so that we don't need to rent them? And I'm also curious as to maybe over the last couple of years what we've spent on pump rentals.
To your first question, the answer is no. We have 9 lift stations, and they all have different pumps, different fittings, different depths of pumps. What we are working on is entertaining bids for a maintenance agreement with a company that will maintain all of the various pumps at the 9 different lift stations, and we'll be bringing that back to council. Depending on the dollar amount, I'm thinking it's going to be over $10,000, so that would be something that we would bring back to council. But that would save us a significant amount of money. Why that was not done in the past, I can't say. It's my understanding from the operator that we did. They did collect those quotes at one time, and it wasn't moved forward. And again, I can't say why not, why or why not. I'm not 100% sold on that. I need to look at all the details of the maintenance agreement, what's involved, are they liable if the pump goes down, what, all the steps involved in that. To answer your second question, in the last 3 years, we've probably spent about $150,000 on pump rentals.
Ouch.
That is a significant amount of money, and I'm not sure, again, why pump rentals were here for so long, why pumps weren't repaired more in a timely manner. I do know that at one point, staff was directed twofold. Prior to my appointment, staff was directed to not spend money at the treatment plant. And then upon my appointment, June 2nd, I again directed staff citywide to stop spending money, but that was because of the impending budget situation at that time. So since we do have a balanced budget, we're knocking off this punch list of the wastewater treatment plant issues. And then the last thing I want to say is I do have an interim wastewater treatment plant engineer starting on Thursday. Interim until we get a bid out and get a more permanent engineer here.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public speakers?
No, Mayor.
Then I'm going to go ahead and open and close public comment on consent agenda calendar. And we'll go ahead and pull item E, and the rest remain.
I'll make a motion to approve A, B, C, D, F, and G.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Orozco, second by Knight, to approve 8A, B, C, D, F, G. Roll call. Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Councilmember Knight.
Yes.
Councilmember Condon.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White.
Yes.
Mayor Lara.
Aye. So we'll go ahead and excuse Mayor Pro Tem White.
Do I need to state why?
Well, I think it's obvious because it involves expense reimbursement to Mayor Pro Tem White.
We've got a couple questions.
I do.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion on item E or any discussion?
I have a question. Oh,
I was just going to make a motion that we approve item E.
I'll make the motion, or I'll second it, but I'd like to just ask a question.
Sure.
Or I can, I'll second that, but I would like to have discussion.
Sure, understand.
So I'll second that motion. I know through other committees, I know if, like, with the county and stuff, we get reimbursed at that level. Does this agency do that? Does it give you, I know like each committee provides compensation, and in addition to that, they give you, for mileage and stuff. This agency doesn't do that?
Some agencies do. I know RTA does. I don't believe the Erica board does.
Oh, they don't do that?
No.
So it's voluntary, it's open?
If they did, Mayor Pro Tem White would be obligated to turn that money over to request a reimbursement or not request a reimbursement. But having never sat on a JPA, maybe Councilmember Knight can...
As far as I know, Erica, there's no compensation there. And I know RCTC does cover, and RTA, and sometimes SCAG, and some of those other agencies do.
But those are the larger boards with, upwards of 20 members.
Yeah.
This is just the...
I've never sat on this committee
Yeah.
before, so I don't know, but I know that some of the other committees do know, so I was just asking if they do, because I don't know if maybe he didn't know or something. So.
I did want to remind all council members and staff, we do have 2 city vehicles that are at everyone's disposal that can be used.
That wouldn't by chance be that red Dodge, would it?
No,
Oh.
not a chance.
I thought I'd try.
Or the Jeep?
Or the Jeep?
The white Jeep?
I don't know, he might let you use the Jeep.
Do we have any further comment?
No, like I said, I'll second that motion, so.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the motion on the floor to approve 8E by Councilmember Condon, second by Councilmember Roscoe. Roll call. Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
And Mayor Lara?
Aye.
Can you hear?
Oh, I can hear everything. Erica Board does not compensate the members at all.
Okay. With that, that brings us to the adjournment of the City Council special meeting of January 25th, 2016. We'll close that meeting at 8:19.